We the People is brought to you by Team Kennedy.
We the people!
They're going to fight, and we all have to learn to start talking with each other. And we have to focus on things that we believe in. The king and queen look out of their castle and they say, we're okay because everybody's fighting each other and nobody's coming over the wall for us. And, I want to lead you all over that wall, stop the rancor, and take back our country.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to News Talk 790 KABC. I am your host, Jake Underwood, and this is We the People. It's brought to you by the Kennedy campaign, and of course, we are here to cut through the nonsense that has been put out there about this campaign, along with, try to just tell you the truth about things. And of course, the main goal of all of this is to make sure you're aware of and that you register for the We the People Party, which is the party that we had to start here in California in order to get Mr. Kennedy on the ballot as an independent presidential candidate. And we're doing it in California as well as a few other states. We're actually going to talk about that with Nick Brana. He's a senior advisor and in charge of ballot access for the campaign. We're going to get him on a little bit later, as well as speak to Jonathan Hiller. He's one of the best photographers I've ever seen, and he's the one in charge of putting all that stuff out on YouTube that you see. He's one of the people that has the final say. And we're going to talk to him about his journey, as well as he got to sit down with the vice presidential candidate, of course, Nicole Shanahan, who joined us about a week ago. No, exactly 1 week ago today. And we're going to wrap up the show by talking to communications director Del Bigtree and just kind of get his feel on everything that's going on, especially with some of the backlash that seems to be happening on social media when it comes to a pick like Nicole Shanahan, which is what I want to talk about today. I'm seeing a lot of negative stuff about whether it be her age, whether it be the fact that doesn't really have a political background. I'm seeing a lot of things like that, as well as maybe some things that she's donated to in the past. And I just want to bring up the fact that, for the most part, all of these things were said about a certain person who won an election in 2016, and it wasn't an issue then. So to me, it's just coming off as, people talking out of both sides of their mouth. And I think it's unfair and it's uncalled for, quite frankly. And it's just a little bit ridiculous. Like your hypocrisy is showing. Knock it off. There are so many things to worry about in this world. And we want to talk about donations that were made 4 years ago. Really? That's the main concern right now? The main concern is whether or not somebody gave money to somebody, because I'll tell you what, I guarantee, I know for a fact because he's talked about it. When you look at President Trump before he got into politics, he gave money to Bill Clinton. He gave money to Hillary Clinton. He gave money to Democrats. He gave money to Republicans. And I'll tell you what, the guy who's running on the other side, more than likely is taking money from Republicans and Democrats. But why are we talking about these issues when there are so many other things to be talking about? I think it is courageous the way that she stood up on that stage and she spoke about the fact that we don't know the capabilities of AI and we need to look into it more. And more importantly, we need to get a control on it. I was talking to a relative of mine, not to get too into it, but a relative of mine has been in and out of the hospital as of late. And do we realize that machines, a lot of them have like Wi-Fi built into it that they can just control? Somebody can just sit there and control the settings from a remote location. This is medical equipment. Things like CPAP machines, things that, will regulate your heartbeat, all of these different things. They're controlling it from a remote place out from who knows where, and they're able to control these. Now, what does that have to do with AI? I know I'm sitting here and I just got done talking about how AI is a threat and it's something that needs to be taken seriously. Well, because it's just a matter of time until these companies, if they don't already, but when they think that this technology is smart enough to replace the human with AI, we're seeing it. And I know that a lot of people will not. And I know that a lot of people will listen to what I'm about to say and they'll go, well, that's just a sign of the times. No, No, it's not. It's a sign that AI is going too far. Look at Walmart. You know, there was the story that came out a few weeks ago that Walmart is going to start charging to use a self-checkout. So not only do you have to grab the groceries yourself, not only do you have to bag them yourself, not only do you have to wring them out yourself, but now you have to pay to do it. Nobody else sees the issue with this. Nobody else. And you know, everybody's going to go, well, you have the opportunity to go to the person at the register. And to be honest, I do. I try to always go to the cash register that has a person there, because that's saving their job. That's creating value for them in that company. But the moment we all start going to these self-checkouts and everything, and, you know, I remember hearing people say this 20 years ago, and you're going, oh, be quiet, old man. What are you speaking about? But they were right. And we wonder why, while wages are being pushed up higher and higher and higher, more companies are going to start doing this. And it's just a matter of time, unless it's kept in check, unless we're looking at it going, what are we doing with this? That AI is going to start replacing the things that we do every day. For a lot of people, it already is. Some people don't even watch the news. I know some websites, they have news reports put together by a robot. And at that point, going back to the medical machine that will have AI dictate what it will and won't do, going back to the self-checkout and AI and all of these different things, what happens eventually, if unchecked, what happens when technology goes wrong and we're all reliant on all of this? You know, when the bridge went down in Baltimore, you know, we all saw the video of the ship, and there's a lot of speculation about it, and you can go the conspiracy theory route, and you can go with, you know, what they're saying happened, but technology malfunctioned. Ultimately, just put it plain and simple, technology malfunctioned. How many computers have you had? How many cell phones have you had that they just stop working because technology fails? Technology doesn't know how important it is. But a worker who takes pride in their work, shows up every day, they know how important they are. That cashier working that cash register. Though to some people, it might seem like a stupid job. They're important. AI devalues the workers who are important to the company. I mean, think about it. When you go into the gas station that you go into every morning, I'll grab a Red Bull, I'll get a Powerade, and maybe if I'm hungry, I'll grab a little breakfast sandwich, maybe a coffee. But the cashier that's standing behind the counter usually has a smile. That's a good start to your day. That little human interaction. Humans need that. But if you're just walking into a place, you got to do all the work yourself. You really don't see anybody, and then you got to go check out. Or if AI replaces the person at the local restaurant that you go to, whatever it might be, it has to be kept in check. And I don't understand how people are upset that Nicole Shanahan has a take like that. Now, I don't know if they're just upset overall because this is the thing, and we see it all the time in sports, and especially like you guys know if you listen, I'm a Cleveland sports fan. I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, and Cleveland sports fan does it a lot, and I know most sports fans do because they have a podcast that they want to push out, so they say crazy things. What am I getting at with this? What I'm getting at is people in their mind come up with a pick that they think would work based on what they know about the people involved. Rather than sitting down, listening to what they had to say, listening to what the candidate had to say, her speech was incredible, by the way. She laid things out. And it comes off as very honest and very sincere. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't be saying that. But the backlash that Nicole Shanahan seems to be facing, it's very odd. And it's not from everybody, but, you know, it's that squeaky wheel. She talked about medical freedom when it comes to our health. She wants to hold people responsible. Is that a bad thing? Really? That's something to sit there and go, oh, well, she's this and this and this. Really? And I don't know about that. I think It just seems to be a very ill-informed take. It's very odd. Like, we're just going to forget that everybody, when it comes to politics, has taken money from both sides. For the most part, everybody's done it anyways. When we return, we're going to talk to Nick Brana. He's, of course, a senior advisor to Mr. Kennedy, as well as in charge of ballot access. Then after news, we're going to talk to Jonathan Hiller. If you've watched anything on our YouTube page, more than likely Jonathan had a say in it or shot it or edit it, put it together. And in our final segment, we're going to hear from Communications Director Del Bigtree. We're going to talk to him about, everything that happened last week and get his opinion on why this backlash. Why this backlash? Because like I've been saying, it's confusing to me. That and more when we return right here on News Talk 790 KABC.
It's strictly up to you.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.
This was paid for by Team Kennedy.
Community service. For them not what's the purpose. That's why I'm standing on business. That's why I'm standing on business, yeah. They truly don't deserve it. Gotta ride with a purpose. That's why I'm standing.
Welcome back to News Talk 790 KABC. This is, of course, We the People, and I have some events to tell you about. Before we speak to Nick Brana, he's going to update us on, what does it mean now that we have a VP when it comes to ballot access? And, of course, give you the details to go and register for We the People right here in the state of California. And if you want those steps, you're going to hear it a few times this show, go to Kennedy24.com/CA-ballot, BALLOT. And I just want to remind you to not miss your opportunity to create some memories with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and fellow adventurers against the backdrop of a California sunset. Flight, hotel, and travel stipend for two are included. You can enter for that once-in-a-lifetime chance to go sailing with independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. by going to Kennedy24.com. And then something else we got going on, if you have family in the Michigan area, if you're just going to so happen to be in Michigan on April 21st, think about attending a night of laughter with RFK Jr. and friends, Royal Oak. The evening will include the comic genius of Rob Schneider, Heather J., Mike Binder, Trey Stewart, Erica Rhodes, and other surprise guests. Tickets start at $125. For more information, go to Kennedy24.com. We now welcome to the show Senior Advisor to the candidate, as well as the man who's in charge of National Ballot Access. I mean, he's a busy guy, so we thank him for making time for us today. We welcome in Nick Brana. Nick, thank you so much for making the time for us today.
Hey, Jake. Great to talk to you again.
And so let's just get it out of the way, because I know for a lot of states, like my home state, Ohio, we had to wait until there was a VP. In order to start getting signatures and different things to get Mr. Kennedy on the ballot. What states have opened up, and how does this change what we're doing in the campaign when it comes to ballot access?
This is huge. It's like a complete phase shift in the campaign, because as a result of laws, in order to begin petitioning and collecting signatures to get Bobby on the ballot, we had to get a VP that needs to be listed on the petition forms. And so there were 19 states that required us to name a vice president, as we did on Tuesday. And now those 19 states are all online. It's just about doubled the number of states that are open. So we've got about 40 states open right now for petitioning, or states that includes the 4 states that we finished, both Utah, Hawaii, where we turned in the signatures, and they were accepted by the Secretary of State, and then Nevada and New Hampshire, where we've collected all the signatures that we need. So it feels great, because people all across the country who have been waiting to petition to contribute to helping to get Bobby and now Nicole on the ballot and make them the next president and vice president of the United States can get going and collecting signatures.
And so when it comes to collecting the signatures, because like I know my home state of Ohio, it's 5,000. What are the bigger states that we are going to have to focus on in the coming months?
The biggest ones that are coming up, and there's a huge variance in the number of signatures that are required. It ranges from, in Tennessee, you need 275 75 in Mississippi because we formed We the People, just like we did in California, in Hawaii, and Delaware. There, you actually don't need any signatures. And so the biggest states are the ones, because it's so lopsided towards the bigger states, and they like just a handful of states make up, half of what's required nationally, half of the million signatures. They basically guide and structure the calendar for the national petitioning drive and operation. So right now we're in the middle of one of those really big states, which is Texas, and Texas requires about 180,000 signatures valid or raw signatures that we need to collect. So we're in the middle of that right now. That's going to end in early May, and then New York is going to open up. New York is going to open up in mid-April. So we're just only about a couple weeks, 2.5 weeks away from that. That also is going to be another really intense one, 45,000 signatures within 6 weeks. And we have to go all the way up to 70,000 signatures because of the buffer that we need to add to ensure that we have enough. So that's 12,000 signatures a week. And then you're also got Indiana. Indiana requires about 60,000. Illinois is going to take 40,000, and we've got Florida, 145,000, and California, where we're doing We the People, which brought down the number of signatures from about 219,000 down to 75,000 party registrations. So anybody who's listening and wants to help get Bobby and Nicole on the ballot in California, you can go to Kennedy24.com/California, and you'll find the instructions to register there. You just essentially are going to go change your party registration on the voter registration form. It can be done online. It takes 5 minutes. You'll go at the bottom of the form. You will indicate that where you select your party. You'll select other, and you'll type in We the People.
That's right. And just a reminder to the people listening, this doesn't mean that you're saying you're going to vote for him. You're not obligated to. This is just saying that you believe in democracy enough that you believe that a third candidate should be on the ballot in the state of California. And so, Nick, before I let you go, let me ask. Now, I know you got a lot to do, but how much of a relief is it, first, to have that VP so you could start making these moves? And what do you think about the vice presidential candidate, Nicole Shanahan?
It's amazing. From the ballot access perspective, it's phenomenal because having twice as many states open, being able to work on them all at once, volunteers petitioning everywhere, that feels really great because we're moving so much faster than we were before. And then in terms of our VP, Nicole Shanahan, I had the privilege to get to meet her on a few occasions now, including in person after the event, and she's just a remarkably earnest, I think, person. With her background, to have accomplished what she has and only be 38, I mean, she's like 3 years older than me, to have accomplished so much. A tech entrepreneur, a lawyer who is really known among the best and the best of technology today. In Silicon Valley, and works with them at the highest level, and to be bringing that knowledge about artificial intelligence, about how to prevent censorship and surveillance, how to use technology for good rather than have it as an instrument of the abuse of power, for her to be bringing that to the campaign, that's such, I think, a forward-looking, optimistic choice, because the technology that we have defines our lives in so many ways, even more than government does. So, between that and her own background, having grown up poor and accomplished just so much, she's a really inspiring pick. I can't wait for everybody to meet her.
Yeah, I was blown away. I didn't know who it was going into the announcement last Tuesday, but I had, we all heard the rumblings. And then when I actually got to hear her speak. Now, with that said, I trust Mr. Kennedy's opinion when it comes to hiring people. He hired both of us. I think those were good decisions. But when it came to Nicole Shanahan, once I heard her start to talk, and I go, oh, okay, so she's a lot more than what people were giving her credit for. And I'm excited for the rest of the country to find that out. Nick, thank you so much for making time for us today, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Great talking to you, Jake.
We have to hit a break for news. What I want to do real quick is play a little bit what Nicole Shanahan had to say about chronic disease just a week ago while she was laying out her plan and what she plans to do with independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We'll be back right after this and news with Jonathan Hiller.
I've spoken to our government agencies. Trust me, I've tried. I've spoken to senators, I've spoken to governors. They all know something is wrong, but none of them take any action. There is only one candidate I have met for president who takes the chronic disease epidemic seriously. It is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I will be his ally in making our nation healthy again. Yes. It is not about a new pill or, quote, finding the cure. We know the cure is cleaning up our environment and providing the basic public goods that are the foundational conditions for health and healing. It is about a shift in our priorities. It is about compassion. Chronic disease, addiction, poverty, depression, this is where Americans are hurting the most. It is time for politicians to listen. So here is how the Kennedy-Shanahan ticket is going to end the chronic disease epidemic. While Bobby is focused on ending the corporate capture of our regulatory agencies, I am going to assemble the best technologists and scientists in the world, and we will use the latest in AI and computation and examine the health records databases of our nation and those other nations who are also on a quest to solve chronic disease. We will find the answers. We will find the answers to our most pressing health concerns within weeks, not decades. We can, if we have access to those databases. It is time to move out of the dark ages of medicine. We can solve the mysteries guarded by corporate influence. We can move from Band-Aid solutions, and we can end this chronic disease epidemic once and for all. I believe it.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.
This was paid for by Team Kennedy. Welcome back to We the People Radio right here on News Talk 790 KABC. And the next person we're bringing on, you've seen his work. If you've seen anything on our YouTube page, he's one of the smartest people on the campaign. And I'm not just saying that, but Jonathan was one of the people I first worked with when I joined the campaign. He made me feel welcome. Jonathan Hiller. Jonathan, thank you for making time for us today.
Jacob, you're way too kind.
You know what? That might be the only time I've ever been told that, so I'll take that compliment. So let me ask you, so I will say this. You're one of the voices because you have experience with politics and you've seen things, you know, you've been on this side of it before, you've worked in a campaign, so you're one of those voices. I'll usually reach out to you to see how you're feeling. And if I can tell that you're really not worried about something, then it's not a big deal. And for the most part, you're very level-headed. So I just wanted to thank you for being that presence in the campaign, because I know it's not just for me. You are that for a lot of people.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think if you've had a little bit of experience in politics before, you see the short-term fervor and the intensity, and that ends up really smoothing out in the long term. And I think a lot of politics is sort of riding the short-term waves to see the long-term success or failure. And for the most part, I would say that, you know, we've had, I would say like moments that seem, intense, but then I think Bobby's message just carries in the long term. And we've seen this growth happen since I started in July. And it's the most unique growth and energy that I've ever experienced in politics before.
And so let me ask you, what brought you to work with the Kennedy campaign?
Yeah. So I've known Charles Eisenstein for about 10 years. And I've known him as a philosopher, a writer. I followed his work for quite a while and then reached out to him, and then we worked together. I essentially reached out initially to Charles and said, hey, I'd really like to get you and your writing in digital video form. And what I heard sort of through the grapevine that he was working with Mr. Kennedy, I flipped a little because it just didn't make sense that Charles would be involved in politics. Like, it didn't compute in my brain. So I reached out to him and I said, what's going on here? Like, who's this guy, Bobby Kennedy? And he said, just look into him. So I had sworn off presidential politics after my experience in 2015, 2016 on the Hillary campaign.
Yeah.
It was a fascinating experience, but I just knew that it wasn't, that politics and the kind of mega machine of the DNC was not for me. So I registered as an independent, and I left politics and said, I don't really see myself involved in the national scene again. And when Charles told me to look into Bobby, I was like, okay, well, let's see. I started listening to podcasts. I read some of his writing. I, listened to interviews. And it really was everything that I've always wanted in a candidate. I reached back out to Charles. I said, how can I be involved? He said, meet this guy, Del Bigtree. I've never heard of him before. Started working with Del on the video team, and now I'm the director of content on the campaign.
And Del, of course, we'll hear from later in the show. Del Bigtree is our communications director, and we're speaking with Jonathan Hiller. So, Jonathan, let me ask you, because I'll be honest, because before the VP was announced, and we now know, of course, it's Nicole Shanahan, there were a lot of rumors going around, and I'm not scared to tell the story because nothing was really shared, but I asked you. I was like, hey, what? I'm not asking you to tell me, was the conversation. I go, but I just want to know what you think. And I'll be honest, your opinion, because you do have that experience, and I like talking to you about stuff because you and we don't BS each other. We just, hey, this is what it looks like. Is this what it is? And you had some very nice and encouraging things to say about Nicole Shanahan. And of course, we saw it a week ago as I guess you could say she accepted the nomination. What was it that just kind of spoke to you, and what can you tell us about Nicole Shanahan?
I guess you can sort of logically think about, the pluses and minuses. I think of that as all the left brain stuff, right? It's what logically makes sense here. And then there's the right brain, which is much more emotional, intuitive. And, logically I was like, okay, I'm interested. And then we got on the pre-interview with her, and my right brain just lit up. Her EQ is incredible. And I think of that as incredibly important. I think IQ is obviously very important, but she's also whip smart. But she's relentlessly kind. And I take that very seriously. I think that is an incredibly beautiful aspect of a human being. I loved the fact that she has a background in tech as an attorney. And a founder. That really resonated with me as being someone who has worked in the tech world before. And she's really the only person that I can see on any ticket that understands the unique threat that AI poses to political censorship and surveillance. That's also really important to me because I think I know, sort of some people that work in that space. I say this it's like we don't understand what this is going to be. Like, we really have no idea. Having someone on the ticket that really understands the unique threat that this poses is incredibly important to me. And I think she's going to take it obviously very seriously. She listened deeply, but she also spoke her mind. So like Bobby, she's rigorous with her ideas. She isn't afraid to push back. And it was a joy to work with her. It was a joy to speak to her. I said, within 2 to 3 hours that we were on this pre-interview with her, I was almost in tears toward the end. She just has an incredibly unique story. Like I said, whip smart, and she's just very emotionally in tuned as well. So she really understands, I think, what makes America tick.
You know, it's funny you brought up Charles because we had him on a few weeks ago, and he talks about how Mr. Kennedy's not afraid to be challenged on certain things, and it's almost like he wants to be, because he wants to hear that different perspective so he can have a different understanding. And I think Nicole Shanahan brings a lot of that, where there are going to be things that they don't see eye to eye on. And I see a lot of the online critics saying stuff like, well, you know, she's donated to this, and he's standing for this. And I think the most unique thing about, and I mean, you could speak better to, because you know both very well. I think they're going to be able to balance each other out to the point that they can come up with the best solutions.
Yeah, I think it's often the tension between different ideas that creates the best outcome, and not the tension between two parties that creates a stalemate in Congress, but real ideas and people willing to discuss and have a seat at the table and really come to a consensus. And I see that in her. I see that in Bobby. I've seen them together do that in real time. I absolutely believe that it'll be a beautiful partnership. Like I've seen that, and I believe that will continue to be that way.
Yeah, the first thing I thought when I started listening to her speak last Tuesday, and of course you can watch that speech on our YouTube page at Team Kennedy 24, is, you know, for so long with the vice president, we've heard it as, well, this will be the deciding vote on this president's legislation. And that's not the vibe that she gives off. The vibe that she gives off is, we're going to work together. I'm going to make sure we work together, and we're going to find what works best for the people. And so, Jonathan, one more question before we let you go. So
Sure.
this whole show, it's We the People, and this is to get people to register for We the People here in California so we can get both independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and vice presidential independent candidate Nicole Shanahan on the ballot. If you get to be that voice in someone's ear as they're walking into the voter booth, what would you want them to know about both candidates, and why should they not only be on the ballot, but why should they consider voting for them?
As the person that is on the ground quite often with Bobby, I have seen him in, quite honestly, disaster situations, most recently in East Palestine, Ohio. He has the ability to strategically solve problems in crises. He's been doing it for 40 years as an attorney. He has the ability to sit in situations that would rattle most people and think strategically, like think with his forebrain, if I had to get all neuroscience on it. He is not rattled. He listens deeply and he thinks strategically. And I think that's the kind of person we need in the White House. I have also seen that with Nicole. I've seen her ability to think strategically and be in high pressure situations and perform. We need that direction for the country. And I also believe strongly that, you know, after East Palestine and that experience that I had with Bobby, I became essentially, you know, to be reductionist about it, I became sort of a single issue voter in that corporate capture. If we solve the corporate capture of our agencies, we will solve 80 to 90% of the problems in this country. And I believe this ticket is the ticket that will end that merger between corporate and the regulatory agencies. I see that interest being probably the most important thing that is going on that we need to solve. And I believe this ticket is going to come into this government and clean up these agencies. And, you know, like Trump said, drain the swamp, but he actually didn't do it. I think this is really the way to ending that merger between corporate interests and state regulatory agencies.
All right. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for making time for us today. And if you want to see Jonathan's work, of course, like I said, the YouTube videos, Instagram, all of those, that is Jonathan's. That is his brainchild. He's not the only one editing. We have incredible editors, but Jonathan definitely has a lot of say on those. And Jonathan, I know you're busy, so I just want to say thank you for making the time to talk to us today.
Thanks so much, Jake. Appreciate you.
Just a reminder to go to our YouTube page, our Instagram. Our YouTube is at Team Kennedy 24, Instagram, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and look at the different videos, because a lot of the videos, they explain the policy and it kind of just spells it out for you. A lot of the opinions of independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. When we return, we're going to talk to Communications Director Del Bigtree right here on News Talk 790 KABC.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.
This was paid for by Team Kennedy. Welcome back to We the People, right here on News Talk 790 KABC. We talk to him every week. We missed him last week. He was busy last week, and you probably saw him on the live stream. We welcome to the show Communications Director Del Bigtree. Del, thank you for taking the time out for us today.
Jake, thanks for having me. It's great to be here as always.
And so first, I want to say great job last week. I had a few people reach out, and they're like, that Del guy knows how to talk. And I go, yeah, it shows you're not listening to the radio show that we do every Tuesday. If you don't know, if you're calling him that Del guy, but that's all right. I forgive you. But great job last week. While it was to explain that Nicole Shanahan is the VP, it almost came off as like an independent convention, which was pretty cool to see, people from different backgrounds getting out there and just talking about the issues that matter to them.
Yeah, I mean, it was just such a great outpouring of ideas, right? You had Chris Clem, who is the, former chief of Border Patrol in Yuma, Arizona. And then you had Angela Stanton King, just doing a brilliant job, emceeing the event, representing, African-American issues, and for her, children's health. And then you had Meta World Peace showing up. And I got to tell you, all these people were just so gracious, so beautiful to work with. And of course, Nicole Shanahan, I've been in meetings with her. She has been blowing our minds now for some time as we were preparing and interviewing and thinking, is this really it? Is this the moment? And she is just such a beautiful benefit to the Kennedy campaign now. They so beautifully fit each other, both really passionate about the environment, but things like, regenerative farming, which she's been a really big donor, a lot of philanthropy in the sort of, health coming from the earth, cleaning up our soil. And then, of course, as she spoke about women's health, something that she's been really big in funding through her philanthropy. And then when she told her story of her beautiful child, special needs child, and what that experience was like, and her desire to just, clean up all of the, the toxic chemicals that are affecting our health and the health of our nation. As we've said so many times, this is the sickest generation of kids we've ever seen in the United States of America. More than 1 in 2 has a chronic illness they'll be dealing with the rest of their lives. We're the sickest nation amongst the industrialized world. We have higher issues of autoimmune disease and neurological disorders. Something's gone terribly wrong. And when you look at the issues with airlines right now, you look at these Boeing problems and all this, this is a result of a corrupted FAA. It's the same thing. When you keep hiring heads of airline industries to run your regulatory agencies, all of a sudden things start slipping through the cracks. Planes aren't as safe as they're supposed to be. Same thing, you let CDC be run by Pfizer and Moderna, and the FDA to be run by Monsanto, and the EPA to be run by Exxon. When you run a country like this, then it is one thing is for sure. That country's motto was, for and by the people of the United States. You have lost your way, because right now it's for and by the corporations of the United States of America. And Nicole Shanahan has got her eyes on the exact same problem as Robert Kennedy Jr., and now they're going to do something about it. So it's really, really exciting. And of course, just a dynamic individual with a background in being a patent attorney in Silicon Valley. And just think about what that means. That means when you look at the dangers, of the future of this world, people will say, oh, are you ready to handle China? Are you ready to handle Russia? You know what she should be saying and is saying? Are you ready to handle those face recognition cameras following you down the street, and the tracking system in your phone, and the AI that's about to take away your life and judge you and make decisions for you? Because that is the biggest danger to our future. And we finally have somebody that comes from that space, has been working. She's had a fellowship at Stanford at Codex investigating exactly that. How do we regulate this, new move to AI technologies, which you're not going to stop it. We can't stop it. But what we have to do is make sure that AI works for humanity, doesn't, enslave humanity. We really have someone in Nicole Shanahan that sees the future. She's ready to move us into the future with elegance and intelligence. And man, everybody that was in the room, and by the way, I think over 1 million people watching live, online, watching that speech, and millions more now watching it on YouTube and all the channels that it plays on. Everyone that's watching the speech, they're all saying the same thing. Just wow. I just keep seeing wow written everywhere I look.
Let me ask you this. When the pick was announced, it seems that the people that listened to what Nicole Shanahan had to say, it was pretty positive. They liked what she had to say, but there was a lot of negativity about it. Why do you think that was?
Well, the negativity that we've seen is just sort of divided, partisan politics as we're used to it. The problem is we're so used to just having that knee-jerk reaction. What was her former party affiliation? Oh, my God. I mean, not only was she a Democrat and a loud, outspoken, liberal progressive, she's one of their biggest funders. I mean, she has been funding Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer. And, in the meetings we talked about, she said she is so disillusioned by all the promises that have been made when she, put large sums of money into that party, that is why she is now deciding to go independent. Plus, she sees that there is corporate capture going on in the work that she's tried to do with regenerative farming, in the work that she's tried to do in children's health and women's health. She's saying the same thing that Robert Kennedy Jr. has been talking about. So what she talks about is she first really fell in love with Robert Kennedy when he was running as a Democrat. She said, wait a minute, finally someone that is speaking to the issues I care about, really making the earth a healthier, safer place, that utopia we know it can be. And, then when he moved independent, she wasn't sure, what she thought of that. But more and more, as she's come around, she's like so many of us, right? She represents so many of us in America that whether we were in the RNC, Republicans, Democrats, we finally said, there just doesn't seem to be a difference. I feel like I lose money every year. I feel like my dollar gets squeezed harder and harder every year. I watched Donald Trump and Joe Biden the last 8 years move $10 trillion out of the middle class and hand it to the uber rich. I watched them all shut down mom and pop stores and restaurants, but keep Costco's and Amazon's open. I watched them keep liquor stores open while they shut down churches. That happened under both of these administrations. But that reaction you're talking about is just simply that reaction that, oh my God, she was a Democrat, she was a liberal, as though you weren't once a Democrat
right.
or a liberal or a Republican, that realized, oh my God, I have been lied to this whole time. And so what we're saying is, look, everybody should be skeptical. That is, we have got to stop just running party lines. And because you have an R or a D next to your name, then we know what you stand for. We don't. What you seem to all stand for is corporate corruption, and that's got to end. And so what we're saying is, just keep listening. Just keep listening to Nicole. Actually sit and listen to her speech and listen to what she's talking about. This is a mother who has dealt with, a child that, she watched affected by the toxic environment that we're in, and is now dealing with that. She watched her own health issues that she had to deal with, and she's been investing in that space. She represents every mother in this country, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. She represents every child in this country, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. She represents those that believe in, call themselves environmentalists, and she stands with those that she said that are conservationists, saying, I've met hunters and, conservationists that are some of the greatest, holders and keepers of the earth that I've ever met. So we've all got to just get away from this sort of our knee-jerk partisan, because that's what we've been designed to do.
Yep.
That's what Bob is talking about. It's time to heal the divide. It's time to just see the person for the person. What do they believe in now? Where are they coming from? What am I hearing about their transition in their life? She is so, Nicole is just so exciting in this space. We're so excited to have her. And I'll say this, there has been some slight pushback, and that's always to be expected. I sat in many of these meetings. We spoke to really great candidates for this position. But, when we settled on Nicole, we knew it just, we had chills. We knew it was right. We knew this was the way to go. But there's always going to be people that, see things their way. This is the United States of America. That's what it's all about. But boy, has it really, the majority of it's just been an outpouring of excitement and joy in the youth. I mean, the young people looking at this 38-year-old woman who's saying to them, you're the technologists of the world. Mm-hmm. You're coming with us to Washington, D.C. You're going to be a part of this process now. And she talked about how young people feel so disenfranchised, that they've just been lied to and spun around, and there just doesn't seem to be anyone thinking about their future. Well, that just changed last Tuesday.
Well said. Yeah, it was interesting to see the different backlash. And I will say, I saw the people defending the choice going, well, what do you think? Donald Trump never gave to the Clintons, and you don't think that Joe Biden's ever received money from Democrats and Republicans? Like, that's just what was going on. So it was very interesting to see that. Del, thank you again, and have a great week. We'll talk again next week.
Sounds good, Jake. Take care.
That is all the time we have this week right here on News Talk 790 KABC. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Any questions you have about anything you heard, feel free to check out Kennedy24.com, as well as going to Kennedy24.com. You can find out some more information about going sailing with independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as well as if you know anybody in Michigan and they want to see a really good comedy show. The one in L.A. a few weeks back was incredible. Rob Schneider, Trey Stewart, Erica Rhodes, as well as others will be on hand. I have been Jake Underwood. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'd bring the job a fresh new point of view.
Well, it's up to you, it's up to you.
It's strictly up to you.
'Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
This is We the People Radio, 790 KABC.